and a real sense of potentiality of the future. So daydreaming is really good for us. So I just want to share that with everybody before I talk to us about this this model. So the model that I want to introduce to everybody today, and it's only just this is flavors, right? You know, we're in a leadership circle, we've got 45 minutes. I won't be able to get right down into the nitty-gritty of it, so hopefully I can provoke and nudge everybody today with at least one thing that they can take away with. But it's what we call the PET model, and the PET model for us allows us to increase our attention management so that we can better master time. So what do I mean by PET? Well, P stands for priority, E stands for energy and emotion, and T stands for trigger. PET model. So it's not my little four-legged furry friend around the corner. It is indeed a model that we can use to help us humanize transformation in our own practice and also in the design and delivery of projects and programs for helping our users and our systems. Priority, energy, and triggers. So I'm going to give you the flavors for what this might mean today. And some of this I'm sure you will all know. And I say this a lot to people: humanizing transformation is not rocket science, but it's just bringing the reality. It's just getting, the logic out there into conversation. Priority. What do I mean by priority? Well, in this particular instance, what I mean is the prioritization of why we do things. So genuine purpose, and then how the techniques we use to prioritize things. So there's two things there. There is the understanding of why we're doing something and the ability to use techniques to prioritize. That's really important. So just very quickly going to go through two of them. Our purpose, we have two key things that we look at. The first one is you yourself. And genuinely, for me to ask you the question, have you clarified your moonshot? You might know what you want to do for the next job, or you might know what you want to do for the next promotion, but have you really worked on your moonshot, your overarching purpose for being in your profession or in your sector? What is the legacy that you want to leave? What is the real kind of value, the humanity piece that you want to bring in? How much work have you done on that? And how clear is that? And secondly, is that sense of in your daily practice, the decisions that you're making. And you may have heard the 5 why. Some people call it 3 why. I call it 5 why. It's basically getting to root cause of why you're doing something. And habitual practice of asking why 5 times in our decision making before we go headlong into a task without thinking about it or saying yes to the manager, whatever is a really important thing for us to do. So really practicing habitually asking ourselves the 5 whys to get to root cause is important, because that gets us to the why of the task, the why of the decision making. So there's a macro view here and a micro view, isn't there? So that's a little prioritization is about purpose, and then how we prioritize our work individually as well as teams. Then we get into the world that I love, which is the world of energy. Has anybody ever heard of lark, third bird, or owl? Ever heard of it? Yeah, I've got a few nanas and I've got a few yayas. So these are chronotypes, and oh boy, is this really good for us to understand ourselves and to work on with teams and to observe and to discuss with our users, because this can help us with the prioritization of when we deliver change, to help boost attention with our users as well. So these are what we call chronotypes, and it's basically biorhythms. So it's when we're at our most energetic. I used to be a lark, and I took about 2 years to I used to be an owl, and I took about 2 years to systematically change myself to a lark. And basically that means is my peak energy point of the day is right in the morning. So that's probably why you're all getting a lot of me today energetically. If it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I wonder if it would be something a little bit different. But the lark is where peak energy is in the morning. The third bird is where peak energy is around about the 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the owl is where you peak at night. Just a little bit of a caveat for those of you that peak at evening, night. If you think that your best time is between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and you feel that you get this rush of energy, and it's when you do your work, because maybe the kids have gone to bed and it's quiet and there's no, your team are not emailing you or whatever. It's a little bit of a false positive, because it feels positive because you've got energy in the hours between 10 and 12. But the real reason that our human body increases energy at that time is because of cellular regeneration. So the true owl really should have their peak around about between 6 and 8. If you think that you're peaking between 10 and 12, I would just question that, because that is the time that our human body is at its peak for cellular regeneration. And if we're using cognitive energy during that time, then we might be reducing our immune system. Just something for us to think about. So once we know where our chronotype is, once we know where our team's collective chronotype is, and even discussing it with users, then we can understand where peak time is and where trough time is, which is the low times, to avoid it. And the other thing that we can do is start putting in recovery times. And it's a really great little thing to do. What I've got in here on slides is just to show you some of the things, some of the tasks that we might want to really start mapping out vis-a-vis lark, third bird and owl, when we might be best to do things to increase our productivity and to ensure that our focus is at its most optimal. The final thing I just want to share with everybody today is triggers. So we've got prioritization, which is purpose and how we prioritize once we understand that purpose to remind ourselves. We've got energy, thinking about our energy, thinking about the energy of others, thinking about our emotion. And then we've got triggers. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work of Carol Dweck, which is all about growth mindset. But a lot of the time people will talk about, are you a growth mindset or are you a fixed mindset? Oh, John over there, he's really negative in meetings. He's definitely fixed mindset. Well, that's wrong. Fixed mindset and growth mindset are just two ends of the spectrum. What we should be focusing and thinking about is what triggered John into a fixed mindset. What triggers me into a positive mindset? So it's the triggers that we should be thinking about, not necessarily labeling somebody or ourselves either fixed or growth, thinking about the triggers. And if we start focusing on triggers, what we do is we start raising our consciousness around attention, focus, attention management. Really, really important. So the performance triggers that we use are, when am I triggered? Who triggers me? Why is it every time we have a meeting and that particular person is in the meeting, the energy in the meeting is different? Why is it that when I have a conversation with that person, I feel really frustrated? Why is it when I have a conversation with that person, I feel really energized about everything? Yeah, who triggers you one way or the other? When are you triggered? Physically, how do you feel differently? Hybrid working, you're at home, you're on your own. You're in shed quarters like me, or I'm inside and there's people around me. When am I triggered? When and where am I triggered? And the other thing as well, which I think is really important, is what triggers us. And sometimes we forget that, physical objects can trigger us as well. So thinking about physical objects, there might be just something that's distracting us because it's there, get rid of it. And when we go through those four W's, what that means is we can start going back to priority, and we can start talking about purpose and why, start getting into the 5 whys, the root cause of the trigger, so that we can either increase it if it's taking us into positive, or get rid of it and manage it out if it's in the negative. So everything that I've talked about today is about humanizing transformation, little techniques for how we can think about more about who we are rather than what we do. And of course, it's all part of the Practitioner Leadership Academy that we have in our community, and that's the professional certification in humanizing transformation that is available for anybody that is in the practice of transformation, whether that's OD, projects and programs, change, technology, etc. So the professional certification in humanizing transformation is available for you to understand more. We're in our autumn season, so we just launched on Monday our new updated program. So if you'd like to know more about that, what I've got in the chat is a little link there that allows